Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well. A green day today in the markets. Today is Wednesday, August 27th, by the way. The big news item from today is NVIDIA reporting earnings, and it did beat both top line and bottom line on earnings. Very impressive numbers. Guidance was very impressive as well. So I think my take from the NVIDIA earnings is that this is not something that's going to cause a reversal. It's not going to cause a sentiment shift in the market. Now, what remains to be seen are the PCE numbers that come out on Friday. So that's going to be very impactful for the market, plus or minus. What we want is for it to be sort of in the Goldilocks zone. Obviously, we don't want it to be hot, but we don't want it to be too cold. Somewhere. Uh, um, Expectations or below expectations is what the market wants. Looking at the indices, as I mentioned, we were in the green. The Russell is up 0.71, Dow Jones is up 0.32, S&P up 0.24, and Nasdaq is up 0.17. Bitcoin had a good day today, up close to 5%. NVIDIA is down in the aftermarket slightly, but I think that this is going to reverse tomorrow. If we do get a dip in NVIDIA, it will be very slight. And this is my prediction. In terms of silver, that's up 0.23%. Gold is basically flat. Bitcoin is at 111,000. Solana is at 203. Doge is at just under 22 cents. All right. So, with that being said, if we look at the areas of strength and weakness in the market, it was a pretty even scale across. I mean, everything did relatively well, if not flat. But we didn't have much pullback. Only big pullback today was in Palantir. It continues to correct. And I really am surprised at those who are, quite aware of, conspiracy theories, and then perhaps they have a problem with the COVID vaccine and whatnot. But when it comes to investing in Palantir, they're totally oblivious to what that company is about. Um, Essentially, they're contributing to building the infrastructure for the future police state in the United States. But I digress. Today, I want to talk about Solana. Why I think it's a pretty obvious buy at this point. So if you look at the 30-day fees, now here we're talking about relative valuation. So we're not working from the ground up. We're comparing it to its peers. And we're going to compare Solana to Ethereum. And so if you look at the last 30 days, total fees on these two blockchains are basically neck and neck, virtually identical. And if you look at the market caps, however, the market caps are 543 billion for Ethereum, compared to 110 billion for Solana. So we're talking about almost a 5x here in terms of valuation, but they're both producing the same amount of fees. And even if you go back a year, it's basically the same in terms of an aggregate number. Um, and This video is partially inspired by this interview I saw with Rex, financial CEO, in which he mentioned something that I was kind of thinking about, which is that there has been a lot of hype recently about Ethereum and stablecoins, and this has largely been led by Tom Lee and his evangelizing for Ethereum and saying that stablecoins are moving to Ethereum, and basically it's where stablecoins are going to be long term. Greg King says Solana is faster than ETH. Frankly, when I saw the big debate about stablecoins all being built on Ethereum, I was like, this is a huge oversight. I think Solana is the story for the future as far as stablecoins go. And I absolutely believe this to be true. And if you look at the Ethereum versus Solana stats, this is from Invest Answers. If you look at the block time, so you want a smaller block time is advantageous. So 0.4 versus 12.1, so it's difference of 3,000% in favor of Solana. And if you look at the finality, we're talking about 0.1 seconds versus 360 for Ethereum. So a advantage of 3,600%. If you're looking at max transactions per second, 45 for Ethereum versus 710,000 for Solana. That's a big deal. I mean, when you're talking about stable coins and the proliferation of stable coins, you need to have a transaction per second that can accommodate that. Yes, there may be additional applications built on Ethereum that make it more usable, but this just means that a lot of the rewards for those transactions are going to go to these additional applications that are built on Ethereum and won't actually go to Ethereum holders. Daily transactions, you're looking at 1.6 million for Ethereum and 101 million for Solana. Daily active users, around 500,000 for Ethereum versus more than 4 million for Solana. So difference of 645% in favor of Solana. Now, there is something where Ethereum does have an edge over Solana, and that is in the average inflation rate. It is currently 4.5% for Solana, but it's 0.8% for Ethereum. But the inflation rate is falling, and it's trending towards the target of 1.5% for Solana longer term. Ethereum sub 1%. That is something in its favor. But that being said, if we're talking about a blockchain that is simply behind in terms of utility compared to Solana, I do think that the increased demand for Solana will more than make up for the difference in inflation rate. So again, if you look at daily active users, for example, 542,000 versus 4 million for Solana. That's a difference of, we're talking close to 8x in terms of more daily active users for Solana. And I expect that this gap is going to increase with time. Same with daily transactions. I mean, you're talking about 50x. And so the demand for these SOL tokens should exceed by a long shot the demand for Ethereum tokens from a practicality perspective. And despite all of these differences between Solana and Ethereum, they're trading with Ethereum at a valuation that's about 5x Solana's. So even if you were to say, okay, the market cap of Ethereum stays the same, but Solana becomes 50% of what Ethereum is in terms of market cap, that's more than doubling from where we are right now. But I think in all likelihood, we'll probably get a growth in the crypto market cap in Q4. And with that growth in the market cap of Ethereum, perhaps Solana actually catches up to where I think it should be. Certainly, if you look at the fees that are being generated by the network, that seems to suggest, the fees that are generated by the network are very similar, as I showed, kind of neck and neck in terms of what these networks are generating. And so the market cap for the network should reflect that, and right now it isn't. And yes, with regards to scarcity, Ethereum, if you look at inflation, it's producing less new tokens. But scarcity isn't about supply only. It's about the relationship of supply and demand. So, one thing that isn't in demand at all is less scarce than 5 things that are in demand by 100 people. The 5 things are more scarce, even though they are more numerable. And I think the same applies to Solana. When you look at the daily transactions, daily active users, there's a lot more demand for them, for Solana tokens, than there is for Ethereum tokens. And so that should more than make up for the difference in inflation rates. So I really think that Solana is probably going to have a really strong fourth quarter. And unless I'm missing something very, very. Now, I will say this because I have given it a lot of thought. I will say that one of the things that Ethereum, and this is counterintuitive, Ethereum may have an advantage on is that it has um, a much lower Nakamoto coefficient. And the Nakamoto coefficient basically tells you how decentralized it is. And so a lower Nakamoto coefficient means it's less decentralized. So the Nakamoto coefficient for Ethereum is 2, for Solana it's 7. Now, and there's some debate about this coefficient, but I think there isn't much debate that Solana is more decentralized than Ethereum is. This may be counterintuitive, but I think that it's possible that institutions will actually prefer a more centralized solution to the decentralized solution because there's it's if there's an issue, it's more easily traceable to where the problem is, and also it's easier to control. So it's possible that governments, institutions actually prefer the less decentralized platform over the more decentralized one. But from a utility perspective, if we're just looking at things from how useful they can be, I think Solana can be a lot more useful than Ethereum. Ethereum, you really have to build on top of it a lot of technology in order to make it work. And even then, that just means that you're splitting the fees that the blockchain network is generating with these other applications, which means there's less available for Ethereum holders. So with that being said, if you haven't become a PIF member yet, do become one. And with that being said, let's go to questions. Salamat Hamid. Hope you're doing well, but considering that the rate cut coming in September, if you have to guess, can we say that the market may be slow until September 17th? No, I think that, so obviously PCE is one hurdle to go over. The jobs report is another hurdle to go over. But so now if we get a positive reading on the PCE, then the markets can run. If we don't, then the markets could pull back. And similar for the jobs report. But the market is forward looking, so it's not going to wait for the event to happen. It's really going to rely on the probabilities of the event happening. If the probabilities are improving, then we'll get upward movement. If they're deteriorating, then we'll get corresponding movement in the market. Salam Ahmed, thank you for all that you do. Thanks, Ahmed. It has been a while. We didn't get an update about CRISPR. I believe you may have commented this on Discord. I did read it, and inshallah, we will get you an update on CRISPR soon. That's definitely a legitimate ask. Abdurrahman Ahmed, I still have some LFMD. Should I sell? I think right now it's kind of trading where it needs to trade. I don't know how long it's going to chop where it is right now. But I do have higher conviction names that I would put money behind right now. So, yeah, if you just want to, if you don't mind holding it for a while it chops, then perhaps hold. But my conviction in the name has gone down. I just think that it's a hard business to make money in. Profitability is very hard to sustain over longer periods of time. Now, what could happen is it could get acquired. So there's a lot of different things that could cause a pop. So it really depends on your preference and what you want to prioritize. Ali Imam says, I believe both ETH and Sol will continue to rise. ETH will hit 5,200 and beyond, inshallah. Perhaps. I think that there's an argument to be made for the preference, especially of bigger players, for more centralization. And there's also an argument to be made about the longer history that Ethereum has, and the longer uptime history that Ethereum has, that may put bigger players at more ease than Solana. Solana new all-time high, says Ali Imam. Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I actually think that's likely. Hassan says, Assalamu alaikum. Thanks so much for the updates. Becoming more like Tom Lee versus Rakaan. No. Now, the real question PIF portfolio does not much involvement in Solana or its treasury. Why is that? Well, that may change soon, Hassan. That may change soon. So keep an eye out. Malik Fakhr says, Salam, you always talk so highly of Tesla. What is your second favorite stock? Well, become a PIF member and find out. But my highest conviction right now is Tesla. Yeah, definitely the highest risk reward relationship right now is with Tesla. Bruv. Salam Rakan, thoughts on ETH uptime versus Solana? I did mention that. I hear ETH has not had any downtime the last number of years, making it a favorable coin for stable coins. Yeah, so that's one factor, but Solana has been performing very well, hasn't had a downtime in a while. And I do think that the advantages of Solana outweigh that historical advantage that is in favor of Ethereum with regards to downtime. Would keeping ETH or SOL be useful as a store of value? Perhaps. I mean, in terms of, is it going to appreciate more than the inflation rate? The inflation rate of fiat, that is. I think there's a high likelihood that both of these appreciate more than the inflation rate, and as such, they are useful stores of value. Any thoughts on AVAX crypto? No, not really. I haven't really taken a look. But if I get enough people asking for it, perhaps I will. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Leave a like if you enjoyed this live. Become a PIF member if you haven't already. And until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.